Row 18, plot 20.
Hey everybody, welcome to Now It's Dark. I'm Jim. I want to talk to you about a movie that just blew me away. It's a movie called Clock. It's a HULU original. This film was written and directed by Alexis Jacknow. It's about a woman's desperate attempt to fix her broken biological clock. This movie was crazy. It was so crazy. There's a lot of cringe moments in this. Our main character, Ella, is played by dianna agron. We have the Dr. Elizabeth Simmons, who's very, very predominant in this movie, played by Melora Hardin, and she seemed familiar. Jay Ali played Aiden, and he also seemed familiar. And I don't see in the credits here. Oh yeah, Saul Rubinek played Joseph, who was Ella's father. He is also recognizable. So this was a lot of craziness that I wasn't expecting. And I didn't know at first that this was a Hulu original. I thought it was just like a movie that went straight to Hulu, but it was a Hulu made movie. It's an hour and 31 minutes. It is rated 5 stars on IMDb. It did go down 1 point. When I first was doing my research, it was 5.1. Now it's 5. Whatever. I think it's actually, in my opinion, it's higher than that. This would go up near 7. Like, it's really good. It's crazy good. I'm gonna do the best I can to express why I feel that way, without spoiling. But yeah, so this story follows Ella. There is she's a designer, an interior designer. It opens up with a scene with her friends, one of whom is pregnant, and she's going to be designing the nursery. And so they're having like a little party, a little garden party type thing, and Ella's getting bombarded with, when are you going to have kids, and all these other kinds of questions. And that's like a reoccurring theme in the beginning of this movie, is how often she's asked, because she's, I think, 37. Yeah, 37. And, Ella just doesn't feel, she doesn't want kids. And there's a really cool, at this beginning, we're setting the stage for where Ella's mind is at. And they did this neat thing. It was very quick and it was a little trickery. But one of her girlfriends asks her, well, what do you do all day without any kids? And then we click, it just advances to this montage, and we see her going through all of these daily things for her, very busy businesswoman. And then it just cuts back to the garden party. Like, I thought that was like going to be a transition into following Ella into whatever rest of the story, but it takes us right back to the garden party. I thought that was pretty clever. So Ella is feeling, the pressure from friends and her father, in particular, not so much from her husband, about the biological clock ticking. There's a lot of subtle imagery and sounds in this movie, right off the rip too, that kind of, like, later on you're like, oh yeah, they showed that egg earlier in the movie. There's eggs, spiders, clocks, auditory background noises like clock ticking. There's this tall woman, who we find out who that is in the movie. So Ella decides she has her annual examination. Her mother had died from breast cancer, so she has begun the stage of her life where she's getting annual checkups at 37 to, catch any warning signs of breast cancer or whatnot. And then that leads to her finding out about this group that is doing a study that can fix biological clocks. because Ella and the doctor during this exam have a deep discussion about whether or not Ella has a clock or if it's just broken. And then it leads us to Ella undercover going to this. I keep saying it's a clinic. It has a name, and I just didn't write it down, and I can't recall it off the top of my head. But she goes through the 10-day procedure. It's very psychological. There's a lot of, again, like I said, imagery, sounds. She's doing the procedures and the therapy sessions. There's so much clever story within those therapy sessions. It's just really well crafted. That actually kind of, the movie pacing is pretty good for a movie that like is a psychological thriller. There's definitely some horror elements, and especially in the third act there's some definite horror elements, but I would say psychological thriller, and really just like clever imagery and writing and dialogue, just really, really good. So it gets intense by the end of this movie. Like some of the stuff that's going on. First, let me say, ladies, if you're watching this video, in my humble opinion at this time, and having been married and watching my wife go through pregnancy twice, and the whole, the whole couples thing, like when you think you might be pregnant, or you get to that couple's decision of like, let's have a baby, or oops, we had a baby. As a husband or a man or whatever, I'm labeled, like we are not fully aware. This movie does a good job of the whole physical examination, like what a woman goes through. Like, I mean, I guess we're just naive to it, or we block it out, but there's some cringy scenes that women, I think, go through on a pretty regular basis. So my hat's off to you, ladies, for enduring those kind of checkups. Men, we get that 50-year-old, we don't have to worry about like colonoscopies till we're 50 when you get the old beep. And then, I don't think you get it again for another 5 or 7 years. So, but women, like, on a pretty regular basis are getting the old whoop, flashlight, and all that stuff. Anyways, so it's an intense movie. It really amps up in the third act. It gets just intense right up to the end. Pretty horrifying, some of the stuff. And there's kind of a twisty twist I definitely didn't see coming. And then just the whole end, the very end, even as the movie is going into the black fadeaway and into the credits, they leave this particular sound going that's just, it's just a normal sound, but because of the context of the scene that we end on in this movie, it just, I don't know. I highly recommend, if you have Hulu, you give yourself, an hour and a half to sit down and watch this. You may rethink about your biological clock and what you are willing to go through to have one of those little brats in your life. So if you've seen this movie, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to get some other people's reactions from this movie, what kind of an impact it has on you. I highly recommend Clock 2023 on Hulu.
So